So this is Founders Stories. I'm going to talk to you today from the reference point of starting and founding one company 20 months ago. And all I can do is tell you my story. So I thought I'd tell you what we do first, and then more personally about why and how I came to do it. So, this please, there we go. I have a company called Blaze, and we make products for urban cyclists. As I'm sure you're all aware, cycling around the world is absolutely booming. In London, we have 500,000 journeys made by bike every day. But last year, over 3,000 people were killed or seriously injured. Before Christmas, if you were aware of the kind of British press, you will have seen that there was 9 fatalities in a fortnight. It's a very, very serious problem. And our launch product is called the Laser Light. It's a front-facing bike light that you have to have by law, but it also has a laser, and it projects the symbol of a bike onto the road in front of you. It increases your footprint on the road, and it allows you to be seen when you're otherwise invisible. So if you imagine being a bus driver, and you've got a bike back in your blind spot you can't see, you see the symbol on the road in front of you before you see the bike and turn. It's a very simple idea to a big problem. I have a tiny bike mad team based in Shoreditch in London, and one of them's here with us, Scotty. We've partnered with a company in China called PCH International, so the product is now being manufactured. It's shipping around the world. We were one of the first UK Kickstarter companies in 2012 at the very end, and 18 months later we've now been fulfilling products, and we have customers in something like 25, 30 countries. We've raised money from some quite exciting partners. I've recently done a small seed round from Index Ventures and also the Branson family, as in Virgin. We have a retail partnership with the UK's biggest bike retailer, Evans Cycles, exclusive in their shops this autumn, this season, and then this autumn we'll be selling elsewhere. And we've got big ambitions. We want to build a global urban cycling brand. There are plenty of challenges for urban cyclists, and we want to be the people to solve them. We've got future products we're working on. I just want to talk to you a little bit quickly, first of all, about the laser light, so you can see one here, actually. The laser technology in it is quite complex. We knew it was going to be quite expensive. The laser diodes were developed for pico projectors in mobile phones, so they're not DPSS, it's not a laser pointer. It's a direct diode which was developed for these tiny applications that was actually, there wasn't an application. People thought every mobile phone would have a projector. They don't. The technology costs an individual hundreds of dollars, and we've got it for a price we can build into a laser light. But because we knew it was going to be fairly pricey, we designed the rest of the light to be the very, very best product on the market. So it's completely sealed, it's fully waterproof, it's USB charged, you can see this one charging here. It's got a backlit control panel that lights up to show charge level. It's got a safety feature, so you can't use the laser off the bike, but as soon as you put it in its bracket on the bike, you can. So it's got bright, flashing, over 300 lumen, and then it also has the laser. I mean, it's super bright in here, so you went, oh, you can see it on the ceiling. So on the wall over there. Anybody else? Can anyone see that? On the wall over there. It's skewed, obviously, because when you shine it down onto the road, it's in the right perspective at an angle. How about that? I do it at an angle. So that's what we do. We're creating innovative products for urban cyclists, and we're tackling a very large problem. So now the personal story of how I came to do this. I was a science student. I did physics, maths, chemistry, and further maths at school. But I loved art and design, and I was told I could do that in my spare time. I should concentrate on the academics for my career in the city that I apparently wanted. And so I went to Oxford and I read physics for a year, and then I left, and I went to Brighton and did product design, which I loved. During my studies, I'd never been on a road bike, but I decided to cycle the length of the UK for charity. So bought a bike, trained for 4 months, cycled 1,000 miles, and got the biking bug very badly, and here I am with a cycling company. and I've been on a bike nearly every day since. But after I got off my bike, I went back to my final year, and I had to design a product from start to finish. And the one thing incredibly clear in my mind is I wanted to create a meaningful product. Marcel kind of touched on this earlier, that you want your workshop for 4 hours, and you wanted the class to be building a meaningful product, and that takes time. And I had time. I was very fortunate. I had a year. So having cycled all summer, I'd realized cycling in the countryside was relaxing and peaceful and beautiful and thoroughly enjoyable. But the cities were stressful, dangerous, and downright terrifying. So I started the year with the theme urban cycling, and I wanted to find the biggest challenge for urban cyclists and tackle it. And so I spent 6 months working with a driving psychologist, working with a bus company, working with a ton of other cyclists, deep diving into all the statistics of what accidents actually happen and what the frequencies are. And there's one stat that really stuck in my mind, and that was the fact that 79% of bikes hit are going straight ahead and a vehicle turns into them. So that's the classic side-sweeping incident, the blind spot. It's also cars coming out of a side junction and pulling into a bike. So I had that very clear in my mind. That's what I wanted to tackle. I wanted to make the bike more visible when it's otherwise invisible. And then it was a case of literally cycling around town and realizing that truck just in front of me can't see me. If he turns now, I'm squished. I wish I was there. I wish I was just 5 yards ahead. Oh well, project myself there, which is a daft idea, but I developed it, I had a prototype, and it was my final year project. I patented it while I was at university, which turned out to be quite handy. And within 2 days of my final year exhibition, it was on every cycling blog in the UK and in the Sydney Morning Herald by the end of the week. So realized then and there that I knew this was a valuable idea. It was a very simple idea, but I knew it had to become a reality. It took me quite a while to realize it would be me to do that. I thought I could license it to an existing manufacturer or somebody who's done this before, who knew what they were doing. So I was sent on an entrepreneurial scholarship to America, and I was accepted to a tech accelerator in London, Entrepreneur First. And I spent the summer learning to code or looking at what we could be building and how to find a co-founder, and all the while thinking about Blaze and constantly letting my co-founder down and constantly going for meetings and constantly tinkering away with it. And then at the end of the summer, I came out of coding class quite late, and my bike had been stolen. And it was a bike I'd cycled that summer on. And it completely irrationally broke my heart. I was in a complete state. Went to the police station, got home, and went online and realized, seeing that somebody had just been killed that afternoon by an Olympic bus turning across him. And that was the exact problem that my product tackled. So I can have this literal kind of slap in the face, epiphany moment of what the fuck am I doing? Look at me, look at the state I'm in. This is what I really care about. This is what I should be doing. So I called my mum, and she said, yes, darling, we know. We just needed to wait for you to work it out. So, well, thanks, you could have saved me 6 months, but fine. So that was September 2012. And 2 months later, we launched a Kickstarter. And that was an interesting journey. We were one of the very first in the UK, so our immediate challenge was educating the UK what the hell Kickstarter was. You can imagine my mum's generation saying, so I'm not getting a stake in your company. No, you're not getting a stake in my company. And I'm not going to get a product for potentially months. No, you're not going to get a product. Why would I give you money now? It's like, well, it's called Kickstarter. It's American. You go. And they didn't get it. But hey, we wanted to raise £25,000 in a month, and we did that in less than 5 days. So that was, and I did it really not for the money, but for 3 other reasons, which is the verification, so proof of the concept. Before I go and speak to retailers and manufacturers about this crazy idea and strapping bike light with a laser in it to your bike and cycling around town, I wanted to prove that people actually believed in it and would pay money for it. And the feedback, so those 782 backers that we have in Kickstarter are still our incredibly active community. And Dee and Rach and the girls on the team spend many hours a day speaking to them and listening to them, and they're incredibly valuable, and their feedback has changed the product. So the first prototype wasn't USB charge, and they immediately stuck their hands up and said, no, we want it to be USB charge. Okay, fine. So these guys are basically paying me for market research. It's brilliant. And the exposure. So we've had a ton of press. We've been in the Times, Telegraph, Daily Mail, Discovery Channel, New York Times, all sorts. And it's or been incoming, which is very, we're very fortunate, but it's, I think, because we're tackling a real problem, and it's a simple idea. It's people can get their head around it, and yeah, we've been very, very lucky. But this has been a complete, roller coaster ride. This is, nearly 2 years now. I've learned an awful lot. I feel very lucky, incredibly fortunate to have learned as much as I do and to be in a position to learn. My mates who stuck it out at Oxford are invariably in incredibly well-paid jobs in the city, bored out of their brains and stepping on the heels of all the graduate people in the head of them. And I feel very lucky to be doing something that I started. And I'm trying to think where I've got completely off pat. This is where we're supposed to be. Okay. And I think there's 3 kind of key things that I've learnt along the way, which I'd possibly like to just pass on now. The first is, we were talking about making a meaningful product. So it sounds daft, but if somebody's thinking about starting a company, the most important thing is to find a problem that you want to solve first. That sounds obvious, but it's missed. I nearly did it, and a lot of other people do. But find a problem and deeply understand it. As to, if as much time as you have to dedicate to that, that's the most important thing to do. Not only the problem, but the people who experience it. I then think, I've got no idea what I'm doing. I've never started a company in my life, and I'd never marketed it or grown a team or raised money or sourced manufacturing in China or solved all the problems that we've been solving this year. But there's always going to be somebody who has. And so just go and ask as many questions as you can. I've spent the first year cycling around town on my bike and knocking on doors and asking experts for advice. And the last bit of advice would be that it's something I've only learned quite recently. I spent the first year, I still am scared, but I spent the first year terrified, that there's many ways to skin a cat. I kind of was constantly worrying, now, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? But there's many versions of right. You'll learn an awful lot more by doing than you were thinking about doing. So, you only have privy to a certain amount of information, make the best decision possible, and get on with it. Yeah, and enjoy it. I forget to take stock and remember how lucky I am, but having fun. So yeah, that's what we do.